Hear highlights from recent concerts around Europe tomorrow morning on BBC Radio 3. Sunday Live is at 9 o'clock on 90 to 93 FM.
The biggest name in football.
I want people to turn around and say he was one of the best in the world.
Possibly the most stylish wife and mum.
I always wanted to be famous, and I am the luckiest girl in the world.
Maybe the most flamboyant, the most controversial.
To me, I thought I was Chopin. To everybody else, I was Harry Antoinette.
Arguably, David and Victoria Beckham, Elton John and George Best. It's the hottest guest list he's ever had. No question. Parkinson's, the brand new series. Next Saturday, 9:05, BBC One.
Tonight's lottery results now on BBC One. In the National Lottery draw, the 6 winning numbers are confirmed as 2, 9, 15, 17, 40 and 48, and the bonus number is 23. Early indications show that there are 4 lucky jackpot winners, each winning just over £5.8 million. The winning numbers in the lottery extra draw are 5, 21, 24, 29, 31 and 37. Initial reports show that there are no winners tonight, which means the jackpot for the next draw has grown to an estimated £6 million. And the National Lottery Thunderball numbers are confirmed as 1, 2, 13, 21 and 33, and the Thunderball itself is number 5.
This is the man the Americans believe is behind the worst acts of terrorism ever seen in their country. This is the man with a $5 million price on his head. But what drives Osama bin Laden? The World's Most Wanted, a panorama special, tomorrow at 10:20 on BBC One.
The news and sport now on BBC One with Darren Jordan and Rob Bonnet.
America at war, Bush tells his troops to get ready for retaliation. The president says he'll smoke the terrorists out of their holes. We'll strike back. The Taliban threatens war against any country that helps America. Inside the Pentagon, first pictures of the building where 189 people died. And laid to rest. The first funerals take place as New York buries its fire chiefs. Good evening. President Bush has declared that America is at war. In his weekly address to the nation, the president promised sweeping, sustained and effective action against the perpetrators of last Tuesday's attacks on New York and Washington. He told the American people that the conflict would not be short, and for the first time he warned Americans that sacrifices would have to be made in the fight against terrorism. The president also confirmed that the US was treating the Saudi-born dissident Osama bin Laden, who's hiding in Afghanistan, as a prime suspect for the attacks.
America's Commander-in-Chief heading to Camp David for a council of war, the strain and fatigue evident from afar. This morning, the Cabinet in emergency session, the President blunt.
My message is for everybody who wears the uniform, get ready. The United States will do what it takes to win this war.
The enemy, terrorists living in the shadows, and those who harbor them.
They will try to hide. They will try to avoid the United States and our allies, but we're not going to let them. They run to the hills. They find holes to get in, and we will do whatever it takes to smoke them out and get them running, and we'll get them.
Then a question. Is Islamic militant Osama bin Laden America's #1 target?
There is no question he is what we would call a prime suspect. And if he thinks he can hide and run from the United States and our allies, he will be sorely mistaken.
The CIA's been trying to thwart bin Laden's operations inside Afghanistan for years, but he has proved elusive. Now the Americans are demanding that Pakistan, Afghanistan's influential neighbor, cooperate in any strike against bin Laden.
I might especially want to thank the President and people of Pakistan for the support that they have offered and their willingness to assist us in whatever might be required in that part of the world as we determine who these perpetrators are.
Tens of thousands of reservists were reporting to their military bases today. The president says the U.S. military response will be sweeping and sustained. He notes it's also likely to cost American lives. For now, a wave of patriotism is sweeping through the country.
I'm getting phone calls from retired World War II veterans in Covington, around here in New Orleans, that are asking to be recalled to active duty so they can go forth and do this.
And just outside Washington, a reminder of why America is mobilizing. The limousines ferrying senators, judges, the great and the good, to a service commemorating Barbara Olson, wife of President Bush's Solicitor General. She was a passenger on the jet that slammed into the Pentagon. This, a melancholy scene that will be repeated thousands of times all over this nation. Americans are grieving. They are also profoundly angry. George Bush's fighting talk is striking a chord with the public. There is no doubt that a major U.S. military operation is coming. The only question is when. Stephen SACKUR, BBC News, Washington.
Well, in New York, the painstaking search for survivors is continuing. Let's join George Alagai, who's there. George.
Thank you, Darren, and good evening. You join me on day 5 of this tragedy in Lower Manhattan, where, behind me, a rescue operation of what I can only call industrial proportions is still underway. Today, I think America is entering a new phase, because even as the rescue workers look for survivors, there are families and friends who are beginning to bury their dead. With the first of our reports from New York, here's our special correspondent, Ben Brown.
New York said goodbye today to one of its heroes. Father Michael Judge was a chaplain with the city's fire department. He died at the World Trade Center as he was giving the last rites to an injured colleague. The funeral was held in a church opposite his fire station, where they knew him simply as Father Mike. The New York Fire Department has paid a terrible price. More than 300 of its firefighters are still missing. The survivors say they need their chaplain more than ever.
Father Mike was he was said over and over, you know, you meet him, you think that you're the most important person to him. He made everyone feel special, you know. I had a lot of intimate talks with him. I loved the man, you know. I never meet another person to replace him. He can never be replaced. He's just that good a man.
New York's fire department is engulfed in grief. So many friends are gone. Friends who rushed to the World Trade Center last Tuesday morning to put out an inferno and who never came back.
Today's funeral of Father Michael Judge is one of the very first after this disaster. There will be many thousands more still to come. Funerals that will provide a focal point for raw grief, but also for anger and for the demands for revenge.
Among the mourners here, the former President Bill Clinton. Father Mike was a family friend. Mr. Clinton told me that America wants to thank Britain for its support in this hour of need.
Since you're here from BBC, I'm very grateful for the support we've received from Great Britain, the statement of Prime Minister Blair. Every American heard the Queen's band play the Star-Spangled Banner on the grounds of Buckingham Palace. It means more to us than the British people can ever know, and I'm very grateful.
Thank you very much. Many firefighters had to stay away from today's funeral. They were too busy searching for survivors at the scene of the disaster. The ruins of Lower Manhattan are still smoldering, still being hosed down. The rescue teams are given food, drink and equipment, anything to help them in their difficult and dangerous work. This is a city determined to show it's pulling together.
Thank you, guys.
Be safe.
All right now.
At Britain's consulate in New York, a 24-hour hotline has been set up for relatives of British victims of the disaster.
Clearly, the staff are having to deal with some very distressed people, and that is not easy. But there's a determination by every...
Think. Slow down.
That's my low.
She was low, playing low in the morning. She was Dolly at school. She was Dolores on the dotted line. But in my arms, she was always Lolita.
Is she keeping you up?
This is a very serious matter.
You're a monster.
Light of my life, fire of my loins. Lolita.
All the shortlisted artists performing at the Mercury Music Prize presentation in an hour after the Real Paula Yates.